guys, and welcome back to my channel. And if you are new, then a big huge welcome to you. I've gone with a little bit of an autism theme today, and I decided to do my hair in the style of one of the characters from Atypical, but I won't go into too much detail because I know that it's not about the hairstyle today. But yeah, so in today's video, which is day 3, I've decided to collab with my good friend Claire to talk about how people with autism, whether they are working in the medical field or who are patients, are supported in the National Health Service. Because I wanted to do an Autism and National Health Service video for such a long time, and especially the case of how much the National Health Service have supported so many people during the COVID-19 pandemic. I thought that with Claire I would give a chance to have a sit down and a chat with her about what she does and how she supports patients, as well as knowing someone who's autistic but working in the medical field as well. And I won't go into too much more detail because I know me and Claire have talked a lot about that, plus with 2 furry friend guests as well. So I'm going to hand over to me and Claire for our collab. So it's day 3 of World Autism Awareness Week, and I am thrilled to announce that my next guest for this week is the one and only Miss Claire Carmichael, who has taken all the time and effort just to do the collab, and she's just come back from work as well and looking very happy as Larry. So Claire, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Saz. It's so great to do this vlog with you. I'm so excited for it. Thank you so much for having me. You know I love your vlogs as well, and everything you do for autism. It's just amazing. Yeah. I'm a general practice nurse, so when you go to like your doctor's surgery, I will be there to see patients. Yeah. So I work alongside other nurses and doctors and phlebotomists. Yeah, it's quite exciting. I've been there for a year now, just over a year.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that's crazy! I never expected it would be shorter, like a few months, but
Yeah.
blimey! And where does the time go?
I don't know. This past year has just flown by.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So today, I have explained this at the beginning, but we're going to be talking about autism and the National Health Service, because many of you have seen on the news for the past few months, well, from last year onwards, that the National Health Service has played a massive part during the pandemic, but it's also played a massive part of people's lives as well. But unfortunately, they had to go like a little bit of ups and downs. But in the autistic community, there have been a lot of people who've been talking about it. So I thought that to explain on how autistic people are getting supported, as well as the disability community, I thought I would ask Claire to collaborate with me to talk about her experiences and to talk about what she's got up to during the pandemic, because she's done so much. I'm going to try like think things from the top of my head, because I've got like a few questions, but I've got one trick question that I did tell Claire before we actually started the video. But then yeah, so first question, Claire, how did you come across the autism community? Because I believe you came across it while you were starting university.
Yeah, definitely. So as a student nurse, we have different placements that we go on. So we'll experience different areas like the hospital setting or out in the community or general practice, for example, where I'm working now. And that's where I first really worked with people with autism. I saw we had a couple of patients with all different learning disabilities, to be honest, and patients with autism as well. So that was the first time, yeah, I ever met a patient maybe with autism.
With autism, you came across a lot of people on the spectrum during your course. And what did you do as well as talking and working with people with autism and learning difficulties during and after your course, and basically after your graduation?
Yeah. So for me, it was like a big learning curve, because the way that I might speak to a patient that doesn't have autism, I might speak differently in the way I communicate with them, just to help them sort of understand things a bit better, because I mean, even for me, in medical jargon and all these different words and things, I don't understand half of it, let alone someone that might have different sort of needs, or that they might not understand as well as maybe a different person might do that hasn't got autism even. So for me, it was a big learning curve, and trying to adjust my communication to that person and making sure that they've got everything they need, making sure they feel comfortable as well, and sort of reassuring them if they're a bit scared, for example, and just trying to give the best care that I can for that person and treat them as if I would treat any other patient, but maybe just giving them that extra care that they might need just to adjust to the level of the autism that they had. And I still do that now, still as in my practice nurse role. So for example, if I know I've got a patient coming in with autism or any learning disability really, I will make sure they've got like a double appointment, so it's not just a little quick rushed appointment. I make sure they've got plenty of time. I make sure that they're coming at a quieter time in the day, so I know that the waiting room's going to be quiet and they're not going to be upset in the waiting room if there's too many noises and things like that might affect them. Just little things like that can really make a big difference, and that's just sort of what I've learned just so far with patients with autism. Yeah, and of course I found your channel as well, because I was googling and looking up things to do with autism just to help myself and help me understand it, because we don't get much training in nursing with different fields of nursing like autism or learning disabilities, even mental health patients. We don't get much training, so for me, it was a big one. I wanted to make sure I was giving the best care to that patient. So that's why I had a little YouTube and Google of people, yeah, to try and get a better understanding. Yeah.
Well, that's really good. Now, it was really interesting to say that nurses and doctors don't really get support or training for patients with autism.
Yeah.
And I know that's the wrong term, really, because I know a few people are going to tell me off for explaining that. But it was really interesting when you said that, because I was a little surprised, because a lot of people have said to me, like, with nurses, they feel that patients on the spectrum, they really find the whole atmosphere a bit confusing, and they feel that they're not going to get enough support that they need. And the biggest worry is about the environment, because I know that when I go to my local GP, I have always this big uncertainty, because it depends on how big or small the general practitioner or a hospital is, if there's not enough capacity or if it's full. It's always going to be a very big worry, not just for the patients but for the staff as well. Yeah. And do you feel that is it kind of like the same, or do you feel it's quite different in one way or another way?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it is very tricky, I think, when you've got patients with autism coming in, especially if you were going to a hospital setting, I think, because hospitals are always busy. And I think it's going to be hard to manage that situation, because there's not really a time where it's quieter in hospitals. It is quite noisy and busy. So that's going to be hard for patients. And definitely a lot more needs to be done about that, because we should be helping people with autism like go to their appointments and things like that in the hospital. But with general practice where I am now, we can make adjustments, so it's a little bit, I think, more manageable. But then if you have to get all of the staff on board as well, so the reception have to know, doctors have to know, the nurses have to know, so that when if you were to book an appointment with the doctor, they know, oh yeah, we know Says, we know that she doesn't like this or she likes this, so they can make those little adjustments for you, so that when you go in, it's quiet in the waiting room, and the doctor or the nurse has got plenty of time for you to give you that care that you deserve. And I think if more people worked like that, it would be just a much better experience, I think, for everybody.
That's really interesting, how you get to know the patients and how they are known to what they like and don't like, because I know that in my GP or hospital, I've never known something like that before, and that really surprised me. And it's really good to hear that in the general practitioner or the hospital you're working, it does that like brilliantly. And
feel like I wish I could go there now. I just wanted to swap my GP for it. Like, can I go there?
Come to my practice, it's fine. I'll be your nurse. Have a great time.
Looking back now, because in the last 2 collabs I did with my friends Connor and Andy about the pandemic, in their interviews, they said to me, with the National Health Service, they have been struggling a little bit during the pandemic in terms of what support that they had over the past year and how things can be a little bit unfair. But I have joined a few Facebook autism friendly groups, and I did mention in one post, which I did mention a few days before, that the supports in the Nightingale hospitals and the supports in any hospital, if a autistic patient has been tested positive for COVID, has to go in with the fear of not having a carer to support them or being in a different environment to some they know. Have you had experienced any of that at all?
Luckily, no. And I can't imagine that being very nice for anybody. I mean, it must be frightening enough if someone hasn't got autism and you're tested positive for COVID and you're in a hospital and you've got all these people around you, you don't know anybody. So for that, we've added autism to that. It must be terrifying for people. And I just think there's so much more that you could do for people with autism to just make them a bit more supported and feel a bit better. I think it's just so sad that people are suffering like that. And luckily I've never experienced it with my patients, but if that's happening out there, it makes me so sad. It's not good.
I have like heard stories like about that, but there was this one story in particular that I did mention, and it was about a 17-year-old boy who had to go to one of the Nightingale hospitals without his mum, who was also his carer, and that was back last year in April, and it was really shocking to see how it happened, because safety comes first over priority. And I've been talking to a few people about this, and this is where the trick question comes in. And I have like written a note about it because I can't remember this question off by heart, but one of the people who asked me this question, I thought I would share it because this was really interesting, and it showed like a difference between priority to look after yourself in between priority over public health. So in other words, that means, would you have the choice of a carer who would come in and then catch COVID in hospital, or would you have a choice of staying with one patient to stay without a carer and just be safe? And then the question I got was this: nurses working in hospitals are expected to spend a portion of their time with autistic individuals, helping them to feel comfortable. What do you think is a reasonable amount of time for nurses to spend with autistic individuals in this capacity?
Oh, that's a really good question. That is a trick question, because I mean, if it was up to me, I'd have someone with autism having their personal nurse one-to-one all day, because it's going to help them and make them feel better. But I know realistically that won't happen out there on the wards. I know realistically there's not enough nurses to give that time to people, which is a shame, and it shouldn't really happen. But I know other people have one-to-one nurses. So if we had a patient in the hospital that was on a suicide watch, for example, sorry, I know that's a bit traumatic maybe for some people, but we have had patients that you have to sit and watch them because they're at risk of committing suicide and they need that one-to-one. So why can't we provide that one-to-one person for someone that's autistic? I know it's a different situation because obviously they're not trying to commit suicide, but it's going to help their experience and it's going to make them feel a lot better and give them better care in the long run. So yes, I don't know.
Well, that's a really good answer, actually.
Sorry,
and
hacking everything.
It looks like you've got a very fluffy brown and white friend over there. It's all right. I think he just wants to have his time in the limelight.
No, I get so jealous whenever I do vlogs or I'm watching something. He's got to get involved.
Oh, it's funny though with dogs, they just want their time to shine, and I don't know why, but it's always like that.
Thanks, Julie.
I found out as well that during the time, because you gave me lots of great tips before I had the vaccine and before and all the events that have happened really, and I know personally, if anyone knows me in real life, I know that I go a little bit over the top. Sometimes I would just have a little ball because like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And then I just start to cry, but you always come to the rescue, and you always try to give me a good hand as well, and I really want to thank you for that, like every single time, because
I try.
you're a lifesaver, you're my hero. I know that's one of the things that I found, because I also recently joined a group that you're part of with the doctors and nurses through one of your friends, but I can't remember his name. I think both of you said that you have, I don't know if it's one or multiple individuals that have like doctors and nurses who are autistic, and I'm very curious to know how does it feel in their perspective, and do they feel okay despite being in a very busy environment? Because I imagine realistically, if you are autistic and if you're working as a doctor or a nurse, it's not going to be like The Good Doctor really. It's going to be like really different towards each other really, in terms of space and how they can adjust to a routine, and that's just one of the few examples really. I don't know if I speak for like all doctors and nurses, but I know with one person it sounds like that he or she is making a massive difference.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so one of my friends, I think I tagged you in a tweet, wasn't it, or something? Was it a tweet? It wasn't Facebook, was it?
Yeah,
was it Twitter?
yeah, that was the same guy.
Yeah, Sean. Is it Sean?
Yes, that's it.
Sean,
Sean,
yeah.
that's the one.
Sean, yeah, he's amazing. So yeah, so he's doing his nursing, and he has autism himself. He's doing learning disability nursing, so I think that's really great for him because he's got autism himself. He can help patients that have autism or different learning disabilities as well. So I think that's really good, and he's doing amazing. He's doing great. I don't know how he copes, but he's doing amazing.
Oh, that's so very brilliant. I'll definitely have to like keep a catch up or something, because I would definitely love to interview him at some point, because it will be like really nice just to see what his perspective is like as well. A lot of people, whether you are autistic or working in the National Health Service, they're going to be a huge inspiration, because the National Health Service in the UK, it can mean a lot to people really in different ways, because even though I'm the only member of my family who is autistic and has learning difficulties, I know a few people in my family who've been doctors, nurses, frontline health workers and paramedics. And it's always going to be like a massive part of, I don't know if I should say community or country, depending on which word you're looking for. But how do I put this? This is a really big thing that I really want to talk about, but I'm going to try my best to ask this question out loud from my head, because a lot of people do have like a devil's advocate in one way and positive enthusiasm in another way. Have you always had positive experiences with patients with autism, or have you had any experiences where you felt like you couldn't cope, or did you find challenging, something like that? I think that's the right way to put it, but yeah.
I think all in all, I've been okay. I haven't, the only real thing I've had in the past was one patient got really overwhelmed in the waiting room. So I just took him outside and just went into the car park and settled him, and he was actually okay after that. So then we made a plan that every time he comes now, he stays in the car park. So he'll just let the reception know he's here, and then he'll wait in the car park because it's a calm environment for him. And that's just the way he likes to do that. But other patients, like I said, I'll either book at certain times, so when I know it's quiet, so the first appointment in the morning is always quiet, or the last appointment at the end of the day will always be quiet. But yeah, but that was the only time I've really had just a challenging, I don't know what you want to call it, sort of situation, but it was fine really. It wasn't, yeah.
I know challenging is like one of the words, but then the other words, for some people, they say spanner in the works or
Yeah.
just something like that. But it's really interesting of how everyone deals with like different stuff. I think that I really want to say stuff, but I don't know if it's a word I should use or not. But it's just like one of the, like those things I can't think. But it's really interesting to see from your perspective, things can happen like that, just like quick and easy. But
Yeah.
with GPs and hospitals, it's going to be a lot harder. And this is why this is a brilliant idea, really, because I never heard something like this before. And it just makes me feel like, yeah, your GP is very inclusive in a way.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. I think so anyway. I'm biased.
You have done something very incredible because you have been one of the volunteers for one of your local hubs to give people the vaccines.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because this is another point that I wanted to make, because Connor, who recently did and uploaded a video on Autism Assemble with a autism vaccination guide, for how people on the autistic spectrum to understand what it's like when you like get set up, and then what's going to be like when you have the vaccine, and then how many minutes you have to wait, and all of that. And I've always been really curious, for someone who had to give the vaccine to an individual who was frightened of needles in general, if they had one before or if they haven't had one before, and with like the venues, because it can be very stressful, especially you don't know which one you're going to, and then especially you don't know what vaccine you're getting until you actually come on the day. And it must be very challenging, I guess, because I know that from your perspective, you always try to think about what goes on in your head, but not just with patients on the autistic spectrum, but with other patients as well. And so what did you find most challenging or most easy things to do when you've dealt with like amount of patients when you give them the vaccine?
Yeah, that's a good question actually. I've had a few patients, so I have had someone that had autism that came in. But what we do with our clinic, I'm assuming everybody does this, but what we do at our clinic anyway, is we ring ahead to book the patients in, but then we warn them that there might be a wait. Make sure you arrive on time and not before your appointment, because then you might be waiting with too many people. Or don't be late for your appointment, because then you might be waiting with a load of people as well. So if people arrive on their allocated times, it should just run smoothly and they shouldn't be waiting around with other people, and shouldn't be too noisy then, hopefully. I've had people as well that are terrified of needles as well, so I've had a few of those, and you just have to reassure them really as best as you can and try and distract them from what you're doing. And it depends on the person as well, because some people like to know when they're going to have the injection, so you have to warn them, okay, I'm going to do the injection now, and some people don't want to know, so they want you to distract them and just do it. So yeah, it's just finding out what the patient wants as well when they come in. So I'll always ask them, do you want me to warn you, or do you want me to just do it, or do you want me to distract you? How do you want to do this?
When I had mine, I did say this in like the past video I did once I had the vaccine. It was really interesting. It was in a calm environment, and I never got like the warning to actually get the vaccine, but I had one of my parents with me who is my full-time carer, and I think what the nurse asked me is that, would you like to look at mum, or would you like to look at the injection? And I did both, because I have had like needles get stuck into me before, because I had multiple blood tests for my epilepsy, and basically I know a lot of people on the autistic spectrum, and most of them, especially now in America, they're starting to get the vaccine, and they've been asking me so many questions about what it's like, is there anything to be worried about. But you just have to go with like experiences of what you have as well, not just like in an individual point of view, but in a doctor, nurse or GP point of view as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're right. And we send our patients information as well before they have the vaccine, so that they've got the leaflets and things like that, what to expect from the vaccine, which quite helps, I think, as well.
This is going to be like more trick questions really, but I won't like do a lot more trick questions because I know that I don't want to overwhelm. But I've been thinking as well, before we actually started filming, I was thinking about if anything was to change, either like during now or in a year's time when the pandemic is over, and what kind of support will people be getting in the future. What do you think you would like to see in the NHS supporting autistic patients, say about 2 to 3 years time?
Oh, good question. I think there definitely needs to be a lot more support. I know that much. Like we were saying earlier, in hospitals and things like that, that one-to-one support would be amazing. If that could be input into the NHS, I think that would be just fantastic for people with autism. Allowing the carers to come along if they want the carers to come along, that would be brilliant, I think, because it's someone familiar to them, someone they know. I think that would make a big difference. Well, I think so. I don't know if anyone else will, but that's just in my head. It sounds all right.
No, it's okay. I'll definitely agree with you there, because I know people are like divided on opinion again, but I know I'm definitely in support for it 100%. And I know that lots of charities like the National Autistic Society are encouraging people to get like the vaccine, but try to go in the right process of how do I put this, what should they do if they want to get the vaccine, and if they feel they're entitled to it, really, because a lot of autistic people who have learning difficulties as well, they've had it really, really tough, really, and some of them had long waiting lists, really. And I know that it took 3 weeks to get my vaccine because I was originally not entitled to have it, because even though I had epilepsy, somehow I wasn't placed under the vulnerable group, which was really, really stressful. And I imagine that a lot of people will feel the same about it. And I know that the NHS are working really, really hard to try and include everyone as much as possible, because it's really tough, and you have to like look in like different ends, really, because people are going to be like, oh no, we've got to wait. But then you just have to think, got doctors, GPs and nurses who've been working really hard, and sometimes they have to have a lot more credit, especially when they go through really tough periods and long hours and all of that. And they just feel they need to get a lot more credit for that, really.
Yeah, I think so. We are working really hard. Everyone in the NHS, I think, is just doing amazing. But sometimes mistakes happen, like your vaccine, for example, should have been given. And that's when I sent you all the information, because the green book I sent you is literally our Bible. So we go by that to give any injection. And your name was, well, not your name, but your condition and things like that was quite clearly there. So you should have been in that group to have it. And that's why I sent you that, so you could show the GP. And I think if anyone's like they should be having the vaccine, they need to look up in the green book and show that to their GP so they can get it booked in. Because mistakes do happen, and sometimes they don't get it right, and technology fails sometimes. So it's always good to question things. Yeah, if you think that you should be having the vaccine or any medical treatment, really, it's always good to question people and keep them on their toes.
That's really good, because I loved it when you actually called the green book the Holy Bible, because
Yeah.
I never know that like a medical book to call the Holy Bible, and I just thought I loved it, because even though it's like it's the big book, you just feel like, oh, I wish I could call something like that, because it sounds really awesome.
Any injection, any vaccines, any immunizations, that's what we go to, and that's what we work from.
This is going to sound really cheesy, because I know that even though I'm trying not to be too stereotypical, but because I know a lot of people who've been talking to me about the new upcoming series of The Good Doctor, and I always interested to know, do you think, and this is going to sound crazy because I know it's not relevant, but I thought I just have to ask this question anyway, because I know that many people actually feel that there are different portrayals of how actors portray an autistic character in different settings, especially the medical environment. Do you think that if you did watch The Good Doctor, do you think it gives an accurate portrayal of someone who works in the medical field with autism?
It's a good question. I've never watched it. Sorry, I don't know what to say. I'm gonna have to watch it now. But with television shows, they don't always get it right, and things are exaggerated quite a lot. So it would be good to watch that actually and see, okay, is this realistic or not? Yeah, it'd be quite a good one to see, I think.
But I know that it sounds like really crazy, but I know Sean, who you mentioned before, and then the character in The Good Doctor was also called Sean, oddly enough.
Coincidence.
So I just thought you get a UK version of The Good Doctor. It was wonderful talking to you, Claire, and I know I could go on about this forever, but I know that I got some bits that you need to say really, but it's been wonderful collaborating with you and talking to you about autism and the NHS today. And yeah, it's been really great though, and I know that the NHS has done so much for everyone, but we love our NHS. We definitely love the NHS. So massive thank you to all the support and hard work you do. And with people like Claire, you are doing an excellent job. And we should give a high five. Woo!
I'm high-fiving everybody else.
And thank you to one of the dogs as well for participating. I don't know if I want to mention his name because I know that you likely get a little bit not a little bit, but I was just worried if you don't want to say his name because of privacy reasons.
Like Dylan and Nix, there's two.
Oh, Dylan and Nix. Dylan and Nix, I'll salute you. Oh,
there you go.
Oh no, he's barking.
He's back.
Oh, but thank you so much, Claire, and thank you, Dylan and Nix, for being so awesome.
Thanks so much.
Even though we can hear your barking in the background, Nix.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And that was our amazing collab. I have to say though, that was one of my favourite collabs I've ever done so far, and I really have enjoyed it. Plus, we still love our NHS, which I'm sending with big hearts and high five. And a massive thank you to Claire for filming with me today. And I really didn't mention most of them because I was going to mention a few links, but all the links that I was going to mention, but if you haven't seen Connor's video on the autism friendly guide for the NHS already, I will leave the link again in the description box down below. But also I will leave links to Claire's channel and all the pages she's supporting within the National Health Service community and the YouTube community in the description box down below too. And with this, I'm going to be drawing this video to a close, and I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. And I didn't really say this before, but I want to dedicate this video for World Autism Awareness Week to the National Health Service GPs, doctors and nurses. You guys are amazing and you are our superheroes as well, and still we love our NHS. And until then, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you are doing very well too. And as always remember to keep on dreaming and to never stop believing. Stay safe, stay positive, and keep on going with your motivation no matter what. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye!